Good afternoon, everyone. We're on, right? Yeah. I just want to call to order the Town of Montgomery IDA meeting of August 12th, 2025. Note that we have a full quorum today. So we have Jose, Stacy, Matt, myself, Tom, George, Bob, and Greg. We also have Ashley and Lauren here with us today. So we are ready to roll, right? All right. Good to see you, Ashley. It's your last time.
Yes, you as well.
Thank you. If I can I take any questions or comments on the minutes for the July 8th meeting? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any objections? Bob is going to abstain, noting that he was not here at that meeting. Excellent. So I'll ask if there are any public comments on the items for the agenda today. And ask Vincent if anyone wrote in. Nothing? So nothing on record. So if we can, then I'll go right to the Executive Director's report for the month.
Okay, so this month's Executive Director report, some key matters to take note of. We'll discuss today the IDA board implementing term cycles for the board members. So the town supervisor and board had planned to pass a resolution to recommend 5-year term cycles for IDA board members. Chairman Tom Jones and I formally met with the town supervisor to discuss that the IDA board can and will handle this matter internally amongst ourselves, so we can properly stagger the terms and make changes to the IDA bylaws accordingly. Another thing, so I had received a FOIL request earlier, couple weeks ago, after last meeting, requesting all documents related to battery storage and renewable energy projects that have entered into a pilot agreement and host community benefit agreements with the IDA. The request covered a specific timeline between, I believe it was January 2021 to current. Ashley had wrote a letter and we denied the request as the IDA has not entered into any agreements with these types of projects in that timeline. The Finance Committee met today to go over the 2026 draft budget that's going to be presented today amongst to the board. We're required to submit the draft budget to the ABO no later than 90 days before the end of the fiscal year. So today we'll look at the budget, and then we'll make a motion to send it to the town and open it for public comment for 20 days before we can pass it at our next board meeting. I am also happy to announce that I was accepted into the 2026 class for the Leadership Orange Signature Program. The program is a prestigious leadership program in the county that takes place over 10 months with a total of 10 classes where participants receive training from local businesses, community, and government leaders on topics important to the residents and businesses of Orange County. These topics include leadership development, economic development, education, planning and infrastructure, health and human services, diversity and inclusion, government and politics, tourism and arts, and the judicial system. So I'm very excited to take part in that program. I believe it will also help, make a lot of the businesses aware that the town of Montgomery IDA exists and just will allow us to be part of a pretty prestigious network of leaders amongst the county. Going into project updates and business development. So regarding the rail line tourist attraction, continue to have meetings and discussions with the company interested in locating their event in Orange County. There's significant interest in the Walden to Campbell Hall rail line. We had a site visit last week at 29 Grant Street with the village manager, the realtors for the site, and the village engineer. The site could be viable, but there is a little concern that it doesn't have the room for parking to handle during their peak season, which they need around 400 parking spaces. So it'd be a little tough at that 29 Grant Street in Walden We are exploring alternate sites, around the Walden area and along that line. There's one site in particular that is currently owned by a business, but it's a 12-acre site that could hold the parking, and they have their own rail siding and rail switch that, could be used and could be very feasible to locate. I have had discussion with the company that owns the site. There could be an opportunity there that, they're here interested in hearing it out, so I was able to connect both entities to have a discussion and, try to set up a meeting to see if, that's something they'd be interested in. Their long-term plans, though, is they really do like that 29 Grand Street site. There's a big historic factor there. There used to be a rail station, back in the early 1900s there. So they would love to be able to put a rail site at that site, and maybe have their smaller events out of that site. But they're very open to what their long-term plans are. They would love to establish a passenger rail that can connect all the towns in Orange County. It's a little ambitious, but they want to be in Orange County. They see that there's a significant growth opportunity for the company. Right now, they average about 60,000 riders a year, and that's between Easter and Christmas. They expect that they can double those numbers by locating in Orange County, which would be significant economic boost, in the tourism department. So that, those discussions will continue, but I'm pretty positive that we can find somewhere in our town or villages that can handle it.
Is that the one that's leaving Kingston
Yes.
and Ulster?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
yeah.
There's a local steel company based out of Walden that I've met with, we talked about it last month, that they want to build a rail site here on Bracken Road. They anticipate it's going to bring 25 new jobs to the company. Their plans are to build 2 smaller warehouses, like 13,000 square feet, and extend the freight line up on Bracken Road about 100 feet, so they can ship and receive steel and use that freight line. I met with the owner of the company last week. He had the IDA application in his hand. He had a couple questions regarding it. I told him he should speak with his attorney, have his attorney look over the application before he formally submits it. So I do expect to have that in hand by next meeting. They close on the property, I believe, this week, and they're fully ready to move forward with it. Sheffield Gardens, I met with the owner of the Sheffield Gardens project, which is a proposed mixed-use housing development in the town. They expressed interest in applying for financial incentives to help, move the project forward. The project plan includes 261 workforce housing units with a priority for first responders, teachers, nurses, and service members. And with that project, there'll be 30,000 square feet of commercial space attached to it. The East Kaisertown Industrial Park, so I set a meeting with the Orange County Partnership and the site owners at the property. Connor Eckert and Lucas Arache from the partnership joined us, and we began development discussions regarding development on the property. The site currently consists of a 120-acre parcel that could accommodate multiple large buildings between 150,000 and 300,000 square feet. There's also a part of the property that is zoned and that was included in the original plans to have a mixed-use housing attached to the business park, which is pretty interesting. It could actually really help the site, with sites like there's, it's kind of like a niche thing where it could be this walkable business park with a little housing attached to it. But with those discussions, there is an opportunity to acquire the surrounding parcels around this site that can really open the site up for major investment from New York State. Once you get into that, that 300-acre size, that's considered a major site of interest for New York State that can handle, that Taiwan investment, those high-tech projects that we're talking about, chipset manufacturing. So this is obviously a long-term plan, so nothing's going to happen overnight. But I'm currently going to be exploring and trying to connect with, developers who may be interested in taking something up like this. Maybe contact the county, see if they'd be interested in helping acquire some of the land to start, building this site out. But with that 300 acres, New York State would come in and spend millions of dollars on infrastructure upgrades to really help accommodate the site. There's also a Power Up program, the new Power Up program from the state, which is similar to the New York Fast Grant. It would be a grant program to help bring critical infrastructure to major sites like that is difficult getting those upgrades in place. So again, it's a long-term plan, but we're starting that planning discussion now, and hopefully we can land something big over there. Hoffner Solar Farm. There's a solar farm project proposed at the Hoffner Farms on Goodwill Road. I met with their developer and their attorney for the project. The plan currently calls for a 23-acre solar farm that will produce 4.3 megawatts of power that will tie directly into the grid and be available for the community to access. The project will also implement agricultural dual use, which they plan to produce hay on the site around and in between the solar panels. This is also known as, the term for this is also called agrivoltaics. I hope I'm saying that right, or AGPV for short. The Valley Central School District has opted out of, there's a 15-year pilot tax exemption from New York State for renewables. Valley Central has opted out of it. So with our UTEP policy, we are able to consider, solar projects and negotiate pilots based on the amount of power generated and everything. So they are currently reviewing our UTEP. I do anticipate them moving forward with IDA. It is a little early, but I'll continue to have those discussions with them. As far as events and conferences, this past month I attended the New York State EDC Summer IDA Academy in Ithaca. Key topics of this conference was the New York State Power Up Grant Program, which expects to launch this fall. And again, that'll provide funding for grid infrastructure improvements for major sites across New York State where access to critical power is a barrier for development. The next major topic, which I've been hearing a lot about this, is how IDAs are moving to incentivize housing projects, and the state is kind of relying on IDAs to help fund these projects. There's a major housing shortage, affordable housing shortage in New York State. At the conference, they mentioned that currently the state's rental vacancy percentage is 2.9%. The state wants that around 10%. This is why we're seeing a significantly high rents across the board. One-bedroom apartments over $2,000. So IDA is coming in and helping incentivize these types of projects, help keep the rent affordable. There's a lot of data to back that up. The partnership said they would share some of the data with me. I also reached out to Pattern for Progress, which handles a lot of data and reports on housing and community development. So I'm happy to share those once I get them. Also, housing is a major factor for economic development. When these companies come in and they're looking for projects, they're looking for sites, they take into a factor, available housing. If a company's going to come and bring 200 jobs, they need to know that there's a place for their employees to live and sleep, and that can be affordable for them. So it is a discussion that's happening across IDAs across the state, where a lot of them are adapting housing into their UTEP policies. Mixed-use housing is in our UTEP policy, so we could consider those types of projects if they were to come to us. So yeah, that was a big topic for the conference. And with that is my report for the month.
Thank you, Vincent. Any questions from the board? Any comments on what was presented? No? I'll ask a question just on the solar farm to start with, if it's okay. I'm curious if, knowing that the school opted out of the state program, do we perceive this being in conflict if we were to support it, pursue it?
I would make the comparison to the school district opting out of the 45B. The IDAs exist to help fund these types of projects. I understand the school may not agree, but, thinking long-term with incentivizing, projects that, obviously right away, the school district wouldn't be getting the tax money for it. But if it helps the community with cost of their energy bills or helps, bring in further development because our grid is being reinforced, you got to think kind of long-term for it. But again, the types of pilot that we would negotiate, in our UTEP, there's no structured pilot where it says, year one, you're getting 100%, year two, 90. That's something that the board would have to negotiate with the developer based on, the power generated and all the kind of factors that kind of go into the project. But, it could create a conflict, but that's like us incentivizing any pilot for any project.
Do we know why the school opted out of that? Do they have too much money?
I haven't spoke to the school district about it, but I would imagine it's the same reason they opted out of the 45B, is that they don't want projects receiving a tax break when they could be getting that money immediately, but at the same time, it's there to help attract development and ultimately bring further tax dollars to the town. There's it's a very public report that you can look up. There's a 2023 report from the state comptroller's office. For every dollar of incentives that the IDA has granted with pilots and sales tax, it generates $6 to $7 within the local community with new jobs, investment, people shopping at your barber shops, your supermarkets, getting gas, so.
I noticed that for the last, I don't think that schools are going to sign on to any IDA project, 485B or us, given the incentives, which is what I've been noticing happen.
I just have a quick question. You had mentioned that Sheffield, you had spoken with them and they picked up an application.
Yes.
My only concern with that is because we live in Montgomery and we see the planning board meetings, I was under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that the pilot program was to be used as an incentive to bring industry here, create jobs and whatnot. I understand the housing. I'm not convinced that it's not, New York State's a big area. I'm not convinced that we're not getting the workforce because we have no housing here. I don't think it's necessary. That's me.
Yeah.
My question is as a town resident, I've been to many meetings, and Sheffield Gardens really doesn't need an incentive. They're already approved. They're moving forward.
Well, they're going through the planning stage. A lot of times when projects are through the planning stage, they may not. It could be hearsay. We don't know what their financial situations are. A lot of times when companies are going through the planning stage, they may have plans to go through the IDA, for instance. Right. And it's just when are they going to approach the IDA? I know I spoke with the owner for that project, back, I believe, sometime in the winter, just to hear about it. And I asked him, is this something that you were looking to get incentives for or financial assistance? And he said that they had planned to go through the Orange County IDA to help incentivize the project, which is when I told him that the Montgomery IDA exists. And so it was stated to me 6 months ago that was part of their plan for financial incentives. I can't tell you if that's the case, if they actually need it or not, because I don't know.
Do you know what it is for housing? If it's a 5-year pilot, if it's a 10-year?
I believe in our UTEP for mixed use, I think it's 15. I would have to confirm this, so I don't want to. Right. I think mixed use might be. It's either 10 or 15. I gotta just double check.
And that would be, just to clarify, any housing development that would go for something like this. This is, which taxes are they given the break on? Do they pay the school tax?
If they were to get a pilot, it's all their taxes.
So no taxes, and then it increases every year for 15 years?
Yes. And I do want to address your other comment about, being, just about job creation. So the IDAs operate under the General Municipal Law of New York State. And in that law, the language in that law, and this is explained to me at the conference I was just at this past month, they don't mention the term job creation in that law for IDAs until like page 100. Most of the discussion in that law is about promoting economic growth and prosperity for the communities, which, you know, if we incentivize a project like this, you have to look at it as, you know, 261 households moving into your town, spending money at your local businesses, and kind of, it's bringing investment into your local economy.
Right.
It's more money flowing through your local economy. You know, obviously, we're not at that point yet where we're talking about incentivizing this project, because we don't have an application in front of us. But they're just factors that, it kind of goes into all of economic growth. Our mission statement is to help the economic growth and prosperity for the town of Montgomery. It's not just about job creation.
But yet,
Which
on
is
our
why-
application, we ask that, how many jobs they're gonna create, correct?
Well, yes, but there's also questions on our application that might not be applicable to certain things. So, you know, they might just put, you know, not applicable for this type of project. Again, mixed-use housing is in our
Sure.
UTEP
Yes, I saw
policy,
that.
and with 30,000 square feet of commercial, it would bring, you know, permanent jobs, new businesses. So, again, it's hard to speak on it because we don't have an application in front of us, but these are all factors that IDAs across the state are considering, and again, you know, if we don't have available housing in our communities, bigger projects might not look to our communities to locate, you know, and bring jobs to.
How does it work too, where they were saying they want to attract first responders and whatnot? Can you do that? I mean, can you actually turn someone away because they don't fit that description?
I couldn't tell you, but I know if they were to enter into an agreement with the IDA and we were to move forward with incentivizing it, we can kind of lay out the terms on how you know, we want X amount of portion to be affordable, you know, so it's, again, I can't speak on that because I don't have that knowledge. But, you know, if they agree to certain terms and we do finance the project, then they have to maintain those terms. They can't go back on it.
Yeah, there'd be restricted covenants placed on
And does it go by the project or by the owner of the project?
the project.
The owner of the project could
The
sell the
address.
project, but they still have to,
Right.
if they have an agreement saying, you know, 30% of the housing is gonna be
Right.
affordable, which is that 80% of median income, they have to maintain that.
Right, and if a new owner was to take over, they have to abide by that, or they have to...
Have to pay back all the
Right.
penalties. yeah.
Okay.
And then for us too, I think it's important to note, like, as a history of the sport, as far as I'm familiar, it's been a mixed bag. I think some history, some time back, there was some support for a housing project. Most recently, the board turned down support for the housing project, looking at the job number creations and what have you.
Right.
And it's always been a question, I think, actually at the state level too. And we saw it, even though they're talking about it, what Vincent was talking about it, you know, the ABO has a strict interpretation.
Yes, so it's not really spelled out in the law that says you can have a housing project under IDA financial incentives. There is, I think it's either an Attorney General's opinion or a Comptroller's opinion from some years back that indicated it could be treated as a commercial project. You have to make certain commercial findings if you ultimately go that route. We had reached out, this was a few years back, to the ABO, to the AG's office, and I think to the Comptroller's office to try to get confirmation that, hey, is this accurate, could it qualify as commercial? And everyone refused to give an opinion. So they referred back to that past opinion, but really didn't come out and say yes or no. So there's just some findings that the board will have to consider if it's gonna go that route and understand how the state looks at it.
I just think statewide IDAs are starting to move more in this direction.
Right.
And
It
perhaps
seems-
they could clean it up and amend the law and then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah, so they're opposing.
IDAs are incentivizing housing across the
Do you have any
state.
examples of any, or how many?
I know there's one that Montgomery IDA did, this was years back. I don't know if anyone was on the board at
The
that time.
project didn't happen,
It was a
right?
bond project.
Right.
I know that they had done one. I know I think I have some
It was
examples I
Goodwill,
could
right?
send to Vinnie to send around.
I like searched because I wanted to see what was coming
I
up
know-
now.
I know-
Couldn't find anything.
I know, again, at this conference, there was the Onondaga County
Right.
IDA was a panelist. They, you know, in preparation to try to attract the Micron, they started incentivizing housing, and now that Micron is coming with a $100 billion investment, They have a need, I believe they have to build around 9,000 housing units in the next 2 years to accommodate that project. So that, that was one of the examples where they've incentivized housing, and they're continuing to incentivize housing. But
So I looked back at this when that project was before the board some years ago. So there were some in Guilderland, some in Albany, Dutchess, Westchester. So quite a few. If you want, I could send to Vinnie to send around so that you could see what, and I don't know if these all ended up going through, and, but I think that they had approval or were close to it. So I could send those examples for you to look
Great.
at.
Thank you.
And I think, the other thing that we have too is always the options to portion out the project. So we could focus on the commercial piece, not the housing piece, if we so choose.
Yes, yes.
But I think what's most important for us is Vinny is helping them with the application process, so we can actually get information and data, if they're so choose to do it, and then we'll
Yeah, I
have
think
that.
that's the main thing, as Vinnie said, to first get the application, look at what they're
Look
looking
at
to
what they're
do, what
doing.
benefits they might not be looking for, a full pilot, maybe they're only looking for certain things, so.
Yeah.
Like you've had projects that just want sales tax exemption, so.
Right.
I think you wait until you get that before.
Great.
Just back on the school real quickly.
Yep.
The relationship with the school, in my opinion, has strengthened between the IDA and then, the administration offices over the past couple of years. So I would definitely, at least every once in a while, reach out and
Yeah.
talk and listen, because they've even showed up to support us here
Yeah.
and share their opinions. and so
I have been, still engaging with them and pushing for, Amazon had reached out to express interest in doing
Right.
some workforce development, or even just donating school supplies. I was having trouble connecting with the school district for a couple months. Finally got in touch with them. They gave me a couple of dates that they're available to meet with Amazon. Unfortunately, when I went back to Amazon, the woman running, that initiative was out on maternity leave, so they weren't able to connect. But I did just see the superintendent at last week at Montgomery's night out with the fireworks and everything, and so I did have a quick discussion with her that once she gets back and then we can engage those conversations again, we'll reconnect
good,
and move
yeah.
forward. So I'm definitely here to support the school district, any way I can, and I do want to maintain a good relationship with them.
We just want to make sure they know
Yeah.
that we listen.
Yeah, absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
I think one of the driving forces is the teachers' union. So I think I would try that route also,
Yeah,
the president of the teachers' union.
okay.
'Cause they were the most vocal
Yeah,
opposing any of the grants.
yeah.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions or comments on the report? Excellent. So if we can, then we'll move on to the finance report. Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, you do that. Thank you.
All right. Checkbook beginning balance from last report is $34,331.60. Checks went out to the lawyers of 800, check number 110 for 840, check number 111 for 150, check number 113 for 1,740, check number 115, 1,170. Lawrence, March, April, May is 2,250. Lawyer again of 690. Town of Montgomery, second quarter, $21,182.65. Lauren again at $750 for June. And Vincent, February expense report of $219,000. That gives you a total of checks of $28,991.73. Checking account balance right now is at $5,339.87. Sailfish escrow, still at $3,212. Key Capture Energy is at $1,480. City Winery escrow is at $1,340. And the checks to the lawyers, check written for $760, and the balance in that is $580. The MMDA municipal checkbook beginning balance of $315,587,056. Interest of $558.69, bringing that total to $316,146.25. Transfer from account 4593 to account 3366 of $30,000, and bringing that balance to $286,146.25. Hudson Valley Country Club is at $7,187. Public Fund Bank Card is at $1,673.40. Withdrawals for the BCGM charge of $55. QuickBooks at $41.09. Google at $233.55. And again, QuickBooks of $41.09. Writing checks of $370.73, leaving a balance of $1,302.67. So your totals are Orange Bank, $5,339.87. Orange Bank and Trust, the Sailfish Escrow of $3,212. Capture Key Energy of $1,480. City Winery at $580. The Money Market at $286,146.25. Hudson Valley Country Club at $7,187, and the Fund Bank Card of $1,302.67, giving you a total of $305,247.79.
Thank you, Matt. I'm just gonna note one correction, unless my ears are just off.
Where are you at?
Vinnie's expense report was $219 instead of $219,000.
I thought he was gonna say that.
But I'm saying he's probably reading it.
Now, for the chair, he has been doing a lot.
It's a workhorse.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Matt. Any questions on the finances?
Yeah, the transfer account from 4593 to 3, what is that? It's just,
The $30,000 transfer?
yeah,
That was just a transfer from our money market account, which is pretty much our big savings account, into our checking account, so we can write the check, just pay for the wages to the town.
So nothing bounces.
If I can have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, so the next conversation we're going to have is around the RFP for our general counsel, and then ultimately put it forward for a vote for the selection.
Yeah, so after our last meeting, with hearing that Ashley will be stepping away from practicing because she's growing her family, which congratulations, Ashley, very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
We did put out an RFP to, solicit proposals for general counsel for the IDA. We got responses from 3 firms, Bleakley, Platt and Schmidt, Drake and Loeb, and Harris Beach Murtha. All the RFPs came back pretty competitive in price, around the same average. I will say, after carefully reading through the quotes and the proposals and the recommendations that I've gotten, I am recommending to the board that we move forward with selecting Lino Scarietta from Bleakley, Platt and Schmidt as our general counsel moving forward. Lino got great reviews from the Orange County IDA, who he's general counsel for, as well as the Rockland County IDA. He's the general counsel there as well. He's got almost 30 years experience practicing municipal law. He's got a full service firm behind him of 10 attorneys, all with at least 10 years of experience. And as someone who's new to IDA stuff, I think having that experience could very well benefit me. And also, again, he's currently the general counsel for Orange County and Rockland County IDAs, and they have nothing but great things to say about him. So that's my recommendation to the board moving forward. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, where are they located?
So their main office is in Rockland.
So they're,
Yeah.
I'll put the motion on the floor. I nominate Lino.
Lino
with the rest of the
Scaria,
company.
yes.
So it would be
That
a
we consider-
motion to appoint Bleakley Platt as agency counsel, make it effective August 13th, 2025, that's tomorrow, as set forth in its proposal of July 15th, 2025.
Good. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone against? No. Abstentions? Motion is approved. Thank you, Finney, for running that process for us.
Of course.
And Ashley, again, thank you for your service.
Of course, thank you,
Appreciate
it's
it.
been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I will say, you've been great to work with since I came in here, and I really appreciate you. And sad to see you
Thank
go,
you.
but also, it's, the circumstances are good, so.
Yes, I'm sure
Congratulations.
our paths will cross in the future.
Yeah.
I also appreciate the fact you gave us the proper amount of notice, so we could go through this process and
Oh,
have
of
something
course.
brought to it, so.
Yes,
It
I'm glad
leaves
you
us
were able
without a
to,
gap.
and great choice. All of the firms would have been great, but you definitely made a great choice there, so.
It's great to hear. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the discussion that Vince has set up in his opening around IDA terms. Just to be clear, these are not term limits. These are terms which, this is meant to be an open discussion based on learning from your experiences, your desires as a board. I'm really appreciative to the town supervisor for allowing us to really take control of this conversation and design this the way that we would like to do it. My personal experience, it is really unique to be on a board where you do not have a term. I know they exist, but I don't think personally it's great governance. I think all the best practices out there suggest that you should. As you may have seen in an email, I'm also in favor of term limits. I'm not promoting them here for this board. That's just a personal experience and something that I'm accustomed to. What we thought we can do is, if this is just in practice something that we all believe in, it's something that we can institute and we can transition into. We can have a rolling schedule that allows us to happen. Some of the things that are most important for us is to make sure that we're not all being displaced at the same time and coming up for renewal at the same time. You want to have continuity in the board. You always want to keep a majority in place. The terms that we could be talking about could be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. That seems to be the norm. We saw that, I think, other parts of the town board, various town boards here had 3-year terms. The Orange County IDA, I believe,
Orange County IDA, I confirmed today, is 3-year terms.
3-year terms themselves. So where do the 5-year terms?
So originally, that's what the town board proposed, was 5-year term cycles. That's what I would recommend. I think we have a great board. I would like to keep working with you guys as long as possible. But yeah, right now, that's what the initial proposal was for the town. They had a draft resolution in place to pass it with the town board, which, me and Tom were able to sit down with Steve and kind of just discuss and, just saying, hey, listen, we don't necessarily oppose this. We're happy to have this discussion. Allow the IDA to have the discussion amongst ourselves, because ultimately the IDA would have to be the one to change our bylaws anyway, which, Steve was very amenable to, and, so that's why we're having a discussion today. And again, this is just a discussion. We're not voting on anything today. I do hope to bring it, for a vote at September's meeting. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, just to get the feeler out there, see what the board is feeling, and, go from there.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'll add around 3, my personal experience, again, just I'll start and then everyone else can share theirs. I'm used to 3-year terms also. So at least on the personal boards that I sit on that have appointed timeframes to them. So I personally can support either with the concept. But I do personally endorse the idea of having terms on a board. The way the process would work for us is that when we came to a conclusion in that term, it would go back to the town board and they would confirm whether or not to reappoint us for our service here. Right now, they set our appointments on this board, and it's in perpetuity unless they pass a resolution to remove one of us, or I think by death.
Yeah.
Right? Corruption.
Resignation.
Resignation, yeah.
Are the reappointments for a fixed term as well? In other words, if you get another 5 years or another 3 years, it keeps on going?
Correct.
Yeah, I think the way that we, just a rough, idea, this is just how we proposed it, would be in January 26, We would reappoint the 3 longest-standing members of the board, which I believe is Tom, Matt, and Bob. Then the following year, in January of 2027, it'd be the next 2 senior board members, which is George and Stacy. And then the following year, in 2028, would be Greg and Jose. And when they get reappointed, it'd be for 5 years. So, you know, Tom, Matt's, and Bob's reappointment would come up in 2031 after that, and then the following year, the next 2, and that would be the staggering cycle.
And Bob, is it okay to share what you shared?
Yes, yes.
So Bob shared with me before the meeting today too, that his intention is not to go up for renewal, and that he is going to retire from this.
I think I've served 5 and a few years, yeah.
Yeah. So we would just thank you for that notice, and obviously your service, we'll celebrate that at the conclusion of it, but having that notice too, that means that we would have to go through a recruiting process to make a recommendation to fill the seat. So maybe start with Jose and go down the line, just your thoughts, experience.
Sure, so I like to echo the statement that you said as far as great government, I'm not pronouncing it correctly,
Yeah, governance, yeah.
governs. And I think that's the key, and it's very important, because then when this happens, you know, you have, you know, you get yourself in a position where, you know, you can broaden your horizons by you know, getting new folks in, or the person that it's in place, you know. The only thing that I looked at is that that could hurt is, you know, when it comes to experience of sitting on the board, you know, trying to get those folks that are willing to do it, number one. Number two, you know, there's no conflict of interest, which is pretty important. And then when you get a person like that, you know, there's a needle in the haystack, because obviously there are folks that have their hidden agendas, and then things can get, you know, complicated and, you know, challenging. But I do agree on you know, the term limits, because then like this, you know, folks can widen the horizons and.
Term cycle.
And these are, yeah,
Term cycle.
the term cycles, not
Term
limits,
cycles, I'm
just,
sorry.
yeah,
Not
because
saying-
they are renewable, so.
Term
yeah,
limits would mean after your term, you can't get reappointed.
Correct. I stated it incorrectly, but yeah, that's exactly what I mean. But that's my thought.
Thank you. Stacy?
My thought is, I'll echo that as well. I think there should be some sort of limitation. I don't know if I agree necessarily with someone like myself. I think I'm going on 2 years. I think 2 years. So if you did do the 3-year thing, well, then it would make sense what you're doing. But if it was a 5-year thing, would you let the newer people finish? Because a lot of people on this board have been here for much longer than 5 years. So would you let the newer people finish out their 5? It would still rotate?
Well,
Or,
it's not retroactive, so like you would continue your term,
right,
and then, you know, your reappointment would come in, for you yourself would be January 27th. So it's not retroactive where it's like, all right, we're gonna implement your term is gonna end on this date. It's, we're just gonna officially reappoint to start the beginning of that 5-year term for you
on that
on
day?
that schedule, yeah.
Okay. And my only other concern was, can we change the bylaws, like without seeing the, I think according to our bylaws, a copy of the legislative act of 1971? Are we allowed to change it when they form the IDA?
So you're allowed to amend your bylaws. There is a process for that, though, so
Okay.
you'll have to, I imagine you'll work with your new counsel to come up with the actual language, and the proposed amendment would get circulated.
Okay.
For this, I haven't looked into this specific issue on term cycles and whether it might require some town board action, since the town board does do the appointments, but it sounds like you're in contact, you know, with the town board, so I'm sure you'd be able to work that out, whether it's some action by both body or just the IDA could do it. That's something you'll have to look into.
And I guess we would have to change the, to the pleasure of the town board, because I'll leave these too for you guys when I saw this. I printed out, I think, Orange County IDA. I didn't see that. I don't see term limits in their bylaws. I have them here. Orange County, Sullivan, Rockland, Dutchess, Colony. I did some other towns, and you're welcome to take a look at them. And I did notice the one thing, everyone, when it comes to death, or when you resign, or if the town at their pleasure, you know, they decide, they all have that language for those that don't have any terms. there was only one that I found that had terms, and it was Rockland or Dutchess, and it was for 3 years. And they changed the way that was because of the terms. You don't work at the pleasure of anybody at that point because you have terms. But that was the only one, and I can leave these for you. Dutchess County had 3 years. Sullivan,
Yeah,
I didn't see any for Orange County.
I met with Jeff Christ, who is our former board chair and is the current chair of the Orange County IDA. Actually, this morning, he stopped in my office. So he did tell me that,
Certain positions or even all board members?
The question I asked him was, do your board members have terms? And he said,
Right.
yes, the 3-year terms that they get appointed by the Orange County Legislature. But that was the words out of his mouth. He said 3-year terms and
And then they can be
then they get
So it might be
reappointed.
something that they're just,
Just
maybe in the actual
information.
appointment itself, it
Yeah.
might specify
Yeah.
the term, so.
According
Yeah.
to the bylaws, it's not, but that was through 2023.
Yeah.
That could have come since, and they didn't,
They may
Yeah,
not have updated them
it might,
either.
yeah, like
Exactly.
Ashley stated, it might not be in their
Exactly.
bylaws, it could just be at the time of appointment, the
Right.
resolution that gets passed is saying this person's appointed for a 3-year term. So it might not say it in their bylaws, they probably just mention it in the resolution when they get
Right.
appointed.
well, if you want some ideas of how others do it, I do have these here, I'll leave them with you.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm not against the term the term cycles or the 5 years or whatever number we come up with. The rolling schedule is something I don't really understand now. I had spoke with Tom about one thing. Term limits, I sit on probably 20 boards. No board that I'm on has a term limit, but I'm not even against that. I'm just saying it for that. But the rolling schedule, I don't understand, and maybe it's the lawyer thing. Whenever you implement something new, isn't everybody grandfathered in? So you would have to really change the language to go into these cycles and start using times that we had already been on the board. Every board I sit on, or whenever we change the verbiage in anything, it's, everything before that is grandfathered in.
Yeah, typically it would be until, someone would be, a new one would be appointed, or someone would, until their term would expire naturally. There may be ways, though, I think you have to just look into how you could accomplish it.
Right.
We don't have terms that expire, that's the problem. And so it would be based off
To
a motion of
implement
this
them.
board to take the action, right? So if we pass a resolution to say, we are going to adopt a schedule to
Okay.
solve for that, this
start
was
that.
only one way to propose how to accomplish it.
So our term would start, like you said,
term
so your
would
term would
start-
start in this January,
If I was appointed, yeah.
so you have to be appointed again.
Yeah,
Yes.
the town would put 3 board members up for reappointment in January 26th,
Gotcha.
and that would start your official 5-year term, nothing retroactive.
We were just
So
using
we-
the idea of like seniority in the sense of we've been here the longest, so we
Three,
go
and
up
then-
first.
Gotcha.
All right, okay.
3, 2, 2, yeah.
And it wouldn't be like 1, 1, 1, 1 over, or it would be 3 at one time? Like what makes you do 3 at one time?
It still leaves us 4 with a majority operating on the board.
So you want to
still
have
a
the
quorum.
quorum. But there's different ways, I'm sure, I'm sure the board's open, everyone's open to discussing how best to accomplish it.
It was just a anchor point to work from,
Understood.
yeah.
Right, right.
Understood. I'm good.
Oh, good, all right. George?
I think the 3 or 5 year term, either one would work fine, but I think you should have the option to be reappointed
Yes,
if it's necessary. So that'll be my thanks.
excellent.
5 years is a long time. If you get an 8-ball on the board, after 3 years, you can not appoint, reappoint the person, so.
Yeah,
Here's the door.
Yeah, that's kind of my contribution.
appreciate that.
I'm on either 3 or 5, doesn't matter to me. I'm just curious, is it kind of like the onboarding when I first got on them? You have a re-interview with
No.
Steve or anything like that? Or is-
No, they would just, I imagine I would have a discussion with Steve and the board with, my recommendation, and I'm sure with maybe Tom or the chairman as well. But no, they would just they would just pass a resolution at the town board. There wouldn't have to be a need for an interview or anything like that, or.
Just curious.
Yeah, I think the first thing that has to happen is confirmation that you want to be reappointed,
Okay.
right? Because it's a graceful exit for anybody who wants to say, I really appreciate, like Bob did this morning, right? He's like, listen, this has been great, but, count this as my out. And that question would be posed to each one of us, right? So you can say, fulfill your service, move forward. Then if that's the case, you would express that interest. It would be in a recommendation to the board, whatever, town board, saying, this person's still interested and wants to continue. There's other things to be taken into consideration too, and it's something we can add is, as far as like our participation, right? We've kicked around over the years a bit, and even just past couple weeks, just like, should we, as an accountability measure for ourselves, make sure that we're showing up to board meetings, right? And you and I were talking about this the other day. So your track record, if you're showing up, if you're always, if we had a board member who could never vote because there was always a conflict, that would not be a useful board member, I would argue. So those types of things I would think should be contemplated also.
Okay.
So I guess what I would ask then is, Vinny will be in contact with us over the next month, before the next board meeting. If you have additional feedback, maybe in a couple weeks, Matt, Vinny, and I can regroup and just kind of say, okay, this is the structure we want to propose to the board, and get some one-on-one feedback with Vinny, and then make sure that we're walking in a board meeting prepared to take action. And if there's something that we want to do, we'll take a motion and pass it or reject it. Sounds fair, Matt?
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and again, this is us, right? This is based on our experience, what we need. There's alignment that this is good governance, and then we'll move it forward, and then the town can respond accordingly. Great. All right. Thank you for the conversation today, and we'll conclude this in September. So the next thing on the agenda is our 2026 draft budget review. Vinny, you just want to go over the rules for this, why we're doing this now, and remind everyone what the process is.
So we were required by the ABO to submit our draft budget no later than 90 days before the end of the fiscal year. So that's, I believe, is October 1st has to be the very final day that it can be submitted. That being said, in order to submit it to the ABO, we have to, the Finance Committee has to review it, recommend it to the board to move forward with submitting it to the town for review, and open it up to public comment for 20 business days, which if we were to vote on it today to move forward, 20 business days would fall directly on our September board meeting, so we can vote and adopt it officially in September. So that's kind of, the governance part of it that we have to abide by. As far as the numbers, I can go to the numbers quick. I'll start right from the top. Projected revenue. This is a very rough estimate number of projects that are in our pipeline that I've discussed with, that have anticipated applying to the IDA for financial incentives. So that's where that number comes from. And again, it's a very rough estimate number. Nothing set in stone, obviously. But as far as our expenses, I was able to shave some off of our budget from last year for the executive director salary and the secretary wages. I've kept the consistent 5% year-over-year increase that has been done in the past. That being said, I will not recommend to the board to implement any raises until we do bring in a project. The last thing I wanted to see is, taking in more money from the IDA while no money's coming in. So until we do land a project, I do recommend holding off on any raises until then. For the video marketing and branding materials, I did shave some off of our budget. Last year's budget had $19,055 for this. With our cost to acquisition marketing, we're not at that number. So I did shave some off to keep us around $15,000 in expenses for that. For the legal and accounting fees, this number last year was. Sorry about that. No worries. This number, I believe, was, I don't know if it was a mistake or a little inflated, but when I was looking through QuickBooks for the previous years, I do believe that the video marketing cost that we had spent was included in this line item, which is where they got that $40,000 from. Currently, year-to-date, we're around $8,000 in legal expenses with Ashley. And then our accounting fees for this year was $11,000. So I did shave off $10,000 because I don't anticipate us coming close to that $40,000. For the IDA-related conferences, community-sponsored events, I kept a consistent inflation rate of 3% year over year to factor those numbers. I did cut the IDA fellow scholarship off of the budget, just because, with our expenses right now, I don't think we should be looking to spend on areas that, we should kind of cut back a little bit. And so I didn't feel the need to put that in the budget for next year. And then again, with the miscellaneous operating expenses, that I kept that consistent 3% inflation rate to account for that.
So if the board doesn't have any questions, it would be a motion to send the proposed budget to the town and make it available online for public comment.
So any questions, reactions?
Yeah, question, so you went from 19,000 to 15 on the video marketing?
Yes.
How did you do that?
So right now, we're paying $1,050 a month for acquisitions marketing, which doesn't come out to $19,000 a year. If I could do the math real quick, I don't know if anyone's a mathematician, but that number, they sold,
It's about spot on.
yeah.
It's just,
That number brings us to $12,600 a year, if we kept that,
Okay.
that same current rate. And then I want to leave a little room in between to, do like, certain types of marketing that we can do, maybe like an ad campaign on LinkedIn or something like that. So again, I didn't see the need to increase that number from 19,000 upward. If anything, maybe kind of cut back a little bit on it for now until we start bringing some revenue in.
Nice job.
And another important thing to factor too, that Tom brought up in our finance committee, we can always revisit the budget numbers throughout the year. If there's something we want to add, we can, kind of vote to adjust our budget accordingly. So nothing here is like really set in stone.
Okay.
We can always revisit it.
And the reason I was asking that, because, the video, I saw, the presentation you did is so important.
Yeah.
That message is just right on key and right on point.
Mhm.
So having said that, that's the reason why I was asking.
No, I put that together myself, so if
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was excellent. So, and that's all the questions I have.
Great, thank you, Jose.
You're welcome.
So the finance committee did pass a motion to recommend this to the board for approval to endorse the motions that Ashley had presented. So if I can get a motion?
I will make the motion.
I'll
So-
second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to do a roll call on this one, Ashley?
You
or-
can.
Yeah, can I do a roll call on this? So Jose,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Tom is a aye.
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Bob, aye.
Aye.
Greg, aye. All right.
Great.
Motion's
And then Vinny
passed.
could get that out today, that way you'll have that
Yeah,
20
I'll
day.
send that right to the town, first thing.
And post online then too for public comment. Thank you.
Excellent. So we have a couple minutes left. Any other business?
Not that I can think of right now, no.
Any update on the milk factory is?
Yeah, so, really nothing yet.
Nothing yet.
It is kind of, I won't say frustrating, but, they're adamant that their funding's coming. I've been hearing it since I started, so, take that with, a grain of salt. We did have a meeting a month ago, I believe it was before last board meeting, but if not, there was a Zoom meeting that I was pulled into with the town supervisor, where they discussed, because Shawagunk was gonna start the sewer line expansion, and the milk factory was supposed to pay, they had an IMA with the town where they were supposed to pay for the fee to get tapped in by July 1st, which they did not meet that deadline. They had asked for an extension, or if the town could loan the money, which the town couldn't. So I think construction is starting on that sewer line, and if it gets to the point where they're at the milk factory to tap in and they haven't paid yet, they're not gonna get tapped in.
Got it.
So, I think that's pretty much their kind of hard deadline right now, if they either come up with the money for the sewer line, if not, then the project is severely at jeopardy.
Yes, we really, yeah. Understand. Thank you.
All right, with no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
No, I just got one,
Yes.
who put this packet, who put this packet together? Thank you. Thank you. This is organized, and, as you see, we're doing these meetings, we're not fumbling through papers back and forth. So it's kind of appreciated, because there's a sequence here that you follow, so it's appreciated. That's all I have.
Thank you, Zed. So if I can need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Bob, second?
Second.
It was like
All in
papers
favor?
all over the place.
Aye.
Aye.